Hi, everybody. We are continuing our discussion about brokerage firms needing to get informed consent disclosures from their clients. So, Jordan, do brokerage firms need to develop policies around informed consent?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. What should those policies say?
Well, John, that's a really complicated question. Can you give me an example?
Okay, sure. Do brokerage firms, do the working brokers, do the designated brokers need to get an informed consent disclosure in every relationship?
Well, ideally, yes. Now, there may be some examples of circumstances where a designated broker could skip the informed consent issue. For example, a very experienced broker associate who didn't require supervision, didn't need to approach their supervising broker with some question or strategy advice, may not need to get informed consent from their client. But certainly, in cases where newly licensed agents who are highly supervised as a matter of rule, they should always be getting informed consent from their clients before approaching their employing broker.
Okay, that makes perfect sense to me. All right, let's talk about the timing. At what moment in time is it ideal for working brokers to get the informed consent disclosure from their clients?
Well, ideally, a designated broker would get informed consent, meaning have their client sign the form at the time of listing. Now, that's a lot easier for listing agents because they've been selected by their seller to be their listing agent, and so they're signing a listing contract and other documents. That might be a little bit harder on the buy side, but agents should still make an effort to get the informed consent at the time of listing.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's imagine a scenario where everything, at least from a paperwork flow, from a regulatory flow, from a compliance flow, is going perfectly. There's an in-company transaction. It's a sale transaction, so there's a seller side and there's a buyer side, and both working brokers, both designated brokers, have gotten each of their clients to sign the informed consent disclosure. And then a problem arises, a problem that's significant enough to require supervision, going to the employing broker, arises. So let me give you an example. The deal's already under contract, but the seller has remorse, and the seller wants to explore options for getting out of the contract. And the the buyer thinks they got a smoking deal, and part of the reason they think they got a smoking deal is they're super motivated, and they have the flexibility and the willingness to pay more, creating the conflict. So what's a brokerage firm? What are the agents supposed to do in those situations?
Well, that type of circumstance does create precisely the conflict that the Division of Real Estate is worried about here, meaning that the employing broker would receive confidential information from both sides of the transaction. In other words, that the seller is concerned and has remorse, and the buyer is very motivated but can pay more. And there are a variety of solutions that are compliant with the license law to this problem, one of which is to shield the parties from the conflict by selecting a supervising broker, for example, on the buy side, who is independent of the conflict and who is not aware that, for example, the seller has remorse. So that would be one solution for that type of scenario.
Okay, which implies there's other solutions potentially for that scenario. Are we ready, Jordan, in this video to identify all the different permutations on all the different problems that may come up and explain to our fans what those solutions might be?
Probably not.
Okay, and so what I understand the firm is doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand the firm is doing is we're waiting a while to see how the market reacts to this. And part of that market is how do buyers and sellers, landlords and tenants react to this. So, for example, if 99% of buyers and sellers sign up to these informed consent disclosures, then the policies will be quite a bit simpler than they will be if only 67% of buyers and sellers sign up to these things. So that's part of what we're waiting on.
That's true. We're waiting for more information about market reception to the informed consent form suite.
Okay. And then I believe another reason that this is very complicated to address the policies is that some brokerage firms might have a culture of only having experienced agents that are less likely to need supervision from the employing broker, whereas other brokerage firms have a business model where they have many agents who require a high level of supervision. Is that another source of complication?
Absolutely, among others, yes.
Okay, so as I understand things, what the firm aspires to doing is to create a menu-like solution that might address a lot of the variations in the future. It would be sort of like ordering, a shirt like this. What kind of collar do you want? Do you want a monogram? If you do want a monogram, what do you want the monogram to address? Is it French cuffs or is it button cuffs?
That's right.
And what we can say to our fans is stay tuned. We hope that'll be available in the early part of 2026.
That's right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we sign off, remember, we live in a complicated world. Be careful out there.